Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Debt Collection 101 here on R But You. We're joined by our first two-time guest, Greg Ruffino with Williams and Fudge out of Rock Hill, South Carolina. Thanks, Greg, for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be with you guys. These things are awesome, so thanks for including me.
All right, thanks so much. So what are we talking about today, Ash?
Call recordings for one-of-a-kind training. So he is the director of training at Williams and Fudge, so he's the perfect person to talk to about stuff like this.
Yeah, tell everyone here that doesn't know who you are about yourself a little bit. Give us a little background.
Yeah, we'll keep this part short, but I think it's always good to know who's trying to tell you something. Been in the industry only 9 years, and it's all been with the company. Did the frontline collections on the phone for 2.5 years, managed a team of 40 people for about 1.5 years, and then 5 years as the director of training today. So got about 360 people in a single office here. We do nothing but higher ed education debt, but that shouldn't matter. If debt is debt, it's the same. And of those 360 people, about 260 or so are collectors that myself and the other trainers are very responsible for making them awesome and making us money, making them money. So a lot of people to manage.
Yeah.
So that's what we do every day.
All right. So yeah, we're going to be talking about one of the most important topics for collection agencies today, that's training. So tell us a little bit why ongoing training is so important in the collection industry, especially today.
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons, Alex. Well, first of all, this industry doesn't require technically any formal higher education. Most agencies might only require a high school diploma or GED, and that's totally fine. We got to keep that in mind with the demographic that might be coming in. So a lot of people also, like my office particularly, we are very happy to hire people who've never done the job before, no prior experience. So from that aspect alone, you need to train professionals from the get-go how to do a professional job. But in addition, as we're seeing even today, that laws and regulations are always subject to change. We're obviously going through a lot of that right now. So you need to be on your toes. And we also know that from the adult learning perspective, obviously for non-adults as well, but certainly adults, just because you teach them something today, that doesn't mean they retain it even next week, let alone next month or 6 months from now. So it's a constant reiteration of bringing information back to people as reminders, as refreshers, and we work in an industry that's highly regulated, and if you step outside those bounds, it's only a matter of time before you find yourself into trouble. So you trying to avoid those issues for your clients and for your bottom line revenue. So if you got to train your employees, not just on the beginning when they walk in the door, but it's a nonstop progress. And sometimes I'm shocked to talk to other agencies out of conferences who have very small training departments or really none at all. And I'm not quite sure how they operate functionally or with profit in mind. So training is critical. So get on your toes. Start training.
Yeah.
Nice. So why are call recordings from your own agency such a valuable tool for training collectors?
If you can't hear yourself, that conversation in that moment is forgotten. You need to also hold people accountable to the training you provide them. It's one thing to be in a classroom and say, okay, guys, I need you to say this. I need you to negotiate in a certain way. I need you to ask certain things or meet client expectations or say compliance items, mini Miranda, things like that. And they all go, okay, cool, I'll do it. Maybe they even take a test and they say, yeah, I understand that. But if it's not happening in the call, how are you going to find out? How are you going to bring the accountability back to them? How are you going to correct those actions? And again, even coming to some of even at the ACA conference in San Diego recently, I'm chatting with certain managers and trainers of different agencies, of all different paper, all different sizes, and they might tell me that they don't have call recording, and I'm kind of taken aback at that. Like, okay, you're setting up a situation that's really difficult as a trainer and as an operations standpoint to make the staff better. People need to hear themselves. Ideally, they should hear other people, people that are top structures in the office. You know, here you have a new hire class. Like, let me let you listen to exact examples of how our top 20 collectors are doing this job every single day. And it's not to make them sound like a robot or exactly like that person, but they need to hear real examples of how these conversations occur, not just our bullet points in a presentation or our talking points in a classroom. It's critical.
Yeah, so obviously training people to be productive and, just good at collections is important, but one of the other biggest things I'm sure is, training them to be compliant. And not get lawsuits. So when you're using call recordings as a way of trading, do you have to train somebody to not get a lawsuit with a call recording? Do you have to have a call recording of a lawsuit, or is there things that you can look for in the call recordings that maybe are like keys that you could use to train people on?
Yeah, so I think there's like three things that I can, off the top of my head here, in addition to what I prepared to kind of address that. First and foremost, when you are alerted to a lawsuit or a problematic case, you need to go and extract those calls and build that into a future training class, which is something I did at the ACA conference. I played a lot of call baiting calls that, in that moment, we wish we could have stopped it, but now we have that content. And with new hires and with refresher training, I replay those calls. This call directly led to a lawsuit. Let's continue to bring that call back to the staff so they can hear this is a real example. Another thing that we use here particularly is call analytics. We use a product called Call Miner. I know there's plenty of vendors out there that do it, but that is able to, kind of in retrospect, it pulls certain words, certain phrases that are being picked up in the call, that flags the call, that might bring it to a manager to review at a later date and time. But the part that you mentioned, Alex, is the most critical. Another thing that we've implemented probably in the last year and a half or so is some of our trainers, particularly on the newer side of our collectors, have a Bluetooth headset in, and at any point in time, they're walking the floor, they might see somebody is having an issue or having an elevated conversation, or they might put their hand up like, hey, I need help, and they can chime in and listen to that call, and they can do in that call, in that moment, not a day later or a week later, and they can coach the collector through the call without the consumer even hearing them being in the call. And if they feel it necessary, they can say, hey, this call is getting a bit escalated, why don't you transfer that to me? And obviously we're not going to catch everything, but that's a continuous effort. 20 historical calls are real life examples, having voice analytics, AI kind of technology doing some things in the background, and having trainers on the floor and managers on the floor who are looking for these things and maybe have the technology to listen in live and to coach live in the moment to catch those things.
Great.
And with all that being said, all those things come at an expense, right?
Yeah.
And so when I hear certain agencies tell me that they don't have call recording, I'm more than likely it's not because they don't want it. It's probably an investment decision that said, we don't quite want to spend money in that area, I'll assume. And that might not be the best decision in my opinion.
I can't believe there's agencies that don't have call recording too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
it's more than likely going to be smaller shops, and that's not to put any of them under the microscope. Obviously, the cost of running business, but there's very real liability in both training and lawsuit potential when you don't have a recording to back up what you're doing.
Yeah, I can't imagine getting a lawsuit and then not having the call recorded. You're looking back blind. You have no idea what happened. That would be.
Yes, this morning I was talking we have a guy here. He's kind of wears a couple hats. He's our ombudsman and a credit compliance officer. And I wanted to verify with him before I came on with you and said it, that there's no law that says an agency has to record calls. There's no law that says you have to even document what happened. So if you're one of those agencies that don't record a call, and then you receive an attorney demand letter that says, hey, on this date and time, my client was saying you did this or said that, you cannot take that to court. You are almost forced to settle that account out. I mean, obviously going to court is going to be even more expensive than settling it to try to defend your good name in your agency, but you couldn't even if you wanted to. And one of the most important things you can do with receiving a lot of demand letters is you need to have a case that you know you can win, and you need to spend the money and go and defend it. That's the only way a consumer attorney is going to eventually decide that I can't continue to attack this agency because they're going to defend themselves. And if I'm an agency that doesn't record my calls, there's literally no court or judge in the United States that's going to side with the big bad agency versus the poor consumer. And you can't even prove what you did or didn't do if you don't have a call recording. More often than not, our call recordings save us. It's certainly not perfect, and we're going to have our issues. But when we have a call or a demand letter, and we play those calls and say, "Oh no, you're not going to get us on this one. We'll take you to court." And we'll tell the consumer attorney, "If you want to go to court, we're happy to go with you because we have the proof to defend what we did." And it's scary to think that if you don't have that, you're going to get demand letters, you're going to have issues, and you're going to have to settle those issues out. So I don't want to spend money on call recordings. I'll just spend money on a whole bunch of lawsuit settlements. No problem. Chicken shit is down, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you kind of hit home on another question too, so that's kind of good. But I actually was going to bring up your ACA international session that you did on call baiting. I was attending that session, so it was a super engaging tactic. But I know you do a lot of like your call recording training in like groups. You can use recordings in a more low key context, like one-on-one with your collectors as well?
Yeah, so we'll do a combination of a lot of things. One-on-one individuals, small groups. I'll even play calls in front, and obviously different sizes of agencies, but I've played calls in front of 200 people before. One-on-one is you're really honing in on the individual. You can target certain things. Hey, I really need to work on your negotiation skills, so I can find calls where they took payments and just play those calls. In small groups, sometimes we're not going to embarrass anybody, but there needs to be a level of accountability. But we might ask the collector to bring certain calls that they want to hear, and we'll play calls in maybe a group of 4 or 5 people, and they can help critique each other, obviously diplomatically and whatnot. And in front of large groups, I'll play really good calls. Contrary to that, I'll also play really bad calls or calls that generated a lawsuit. So, for example, if I have an employee that had a really bad call historically that we came across and they're no longer in our office, I'll put them on blast. I'm not going to doctor up their voice or overly edit the call. I'll say it doesn't matter. This is our property. The call is our property, and you're not here. Hey, everyone, don't do this. Or in retrospect, if I have someone that still works here and they had an unfortunate event or something led to a lawsuit, my staff needs to hear that call. But I use free software to edit these calls. It's nothing fancy, nothing special, and I can change the voice inflection. It kind of sounds like a random someone got kidnapped call. Yeah. And the staff will always try to figure out who it is, but I make sure you can understand what's being said, but you won't know who that voice is. And they'll always ask me, who was that? I'm not going to tell you who that was. I'll also get that person's permission to play the call. And more often than not, they'll be like, yeah, you can play because everyone should hear that. But I make sure that no identifiable information is on that call whatsoever, but you still hear the content and say, hey guys, this call right here led to a lawsuit. Don't ask me about who is on the call, but you need to hear what happened on it. And so one-on-one with targeted training, small groups for people to hear each other, and large-scale groups when I need a big message to be sent to get the best bang for my buck, where I can get 100 people, 200 people all at once. Here's how we want to make our conversations happen or don't happen.
Yeah, so I wasn't at the ACA, but you played call recordings in front of everybody there of your own collectors doing talk-ups? Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah,
most
it
agencies
is really cool.
Most agencies wouldn't want to share that, I feel like, but that's cool that you guys did.
And with that said, I totally understand that. And the calls I play are edited where names are taken out and
right.
all that personal identifiable information is taken out. And even yesterday, I had people from ACA, trade business cards and whatnot, are emailing me, hey, can I get those calls? And I'm happy to do that. And, I make sure they're not like a direct competitor, sorry. But hey, you collect on medical debt and auto loan, sweat off my back. I'm happy to collaborate with you. I'm happy to build my own benchmark groups, and I'll ask them for ideas and what kind of content you have for me. But so that goes back to say that a lot of some level of agencies don't have their own content to pull from. They don't record calls, and they'll reach out to me and say, hey, I want those calls. Hey, no problem. We're in this together. And especially if you're not a direct competitor, of course. Sorry, guys. We've all been to countless presentations in classes where there's a presenter, there's a PowerPoint, there's bullet points, they talk through it. Hopefully the speaker's outstanding. If they're not, then that's a tough session, at least in my opinion. I'm trying to bring as many mediums as possible. Here's a real YouTube video of what a consumer attorney is doing to solicit business. There are 3 real calls that led to lawsuits. And if you're not hearing and seeing those things, then you're just kind of blowing hot air and hoping people pick up on it.
Yeah. Right. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm sure you've thought this through already. That's why you guys edit the calls a little bit. But how collectors, are they embarrassed when you share some of their calls, especially if they're bad ones? Like, how do you handle that?
It is rare that I would play a not great call in front of anyone other than the individual. I myself didn't like hearing myself in voice recording. I won't bore you with the science that tells you when you hear your own voice, your earbones are wiggling and your voice sounds different than hearing it on a recording. You can edit that out. But most people don't like to hear the sound of their own voice, whether it's a good call or a bad call. That's beside the point. There's no way I can make someone better if there's not a level of accountability. Those call recordings are more often done in a private setting, one-on-one, manager to collector, and you can't be hesitant to tell someone, hey, we got a client complaint, we have a consumer complaint on this call. They need to hear what they did. And more often than not, Alex, there is a level of embarrassment, but it's an embarrassment that says, I'm an adult, this job's important, I need to get better. And I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I acted like that. Oftentimes they hear that one time and they change their ways. They might fall down a path of a consumer trying to escalate something or get into an arguing match. And you try to explain to them, that person's never going to give you $1. I wouldn't give you $1 if you were yelling at me. I don't care what the situation is. More often than not, they hear those calls. There is a little bit level of embarrassment, but I'm not making them embarrassed. The call itself is embarrassing to them, and they tend to want to change and not do those things again because they don't seem like, man, that's really not me. I can't believe I let myself do that. But they need to hear it.
Yeah, you also touched on this a lot, but if there's anything else you want to add for this, for any agencies that are not recording calls, like the legal issues that they should be aware of. I know you brought up like the settlement and getting lawsuits for certain calls. They obviously won't have those calls to show in court, which obviously is a big deal. Is there anything else that you want to add like to that? Yeah,
so before you even worry about a lawsuit that's at your doorstep, you worry about preventing that from happening. And the prevention is in training. And like I said, you can talk all day about what you should or shouldn't do. I can put quizzes in front of you. I can sit behind you and listen to you in the moment, whether I have an ear device that listens in or not, or I'm just literally standing there listening to you. I need the best elements to train people to prevent those issues from happening. And you're having a very difficult time if you don't have real call recordings of what happened to do that training. So first of all, I'm trying to prevent lawsuits from the training aspect. And then secondly, kind of like you said, if I have a demand letter, I can't defend it. Prove to me that my client is wrong. I can't. And it's more expensive to hire your attorney to go to court than it is to settle for 50 or 75% of the initial demand. And I fear that some agencies are afraid to invest in whatever technology they need to get call recording. And you got to keep in mind too, you have to pay for your server space, your data, your data protection. All that stuff incurs cost. Or you're going to be reserved to, I hope we don't get a whole lot of lawsuits, and if we do, it's the cost of doing business, and we'll just settle it out, and we'll take the lesson from that lawsuit and then try to train backwards. No, you got to train forwards and then be able to defend yourself. I think it's so important for agencies to target specific lawsuits and actually go and defend them. That's the only way to let a consumer attorney know that you're not just going to roll over and settle everything that they put at your doorstep.
Yeah. Good thing we include call recording for free with all our products. Shameless plug.
Well, you should absolutely do that. That's what this is for, and good for you. And plug away, man. I'm happy to tell you guys are doing it right then, offering that product. So when I say it incurs a cost, a product like yours, maybe it's part of the package. It doesn't have to be some additional outside vendor or some add-on program that you need to relearn. Companies like you are providing that as part of the package, and that's why I'm glad to talk to you guys, because you're doing it the right way.
Thanks. So I got something that's a little off topic, but it's kind of plays into it. So here, there's so many collection agencies in Western New York, so it's extremely competitive for the agencies around here. It's the biggest struggle that any agency that I talk to has is hiring. So especially experienced collectors, because they can just kind of go anywhere around here. So how hiring inexperienced collectors or someone who's never done collections before, does this training make that process simpler? Do you do other things to bring somebody in like that? Like, can you kind of take us through that?
Just based on our location, we don't have that issue. You have very aware of the population of collection agencies in Western New York, but we more often than not are going to hire people that have no experience, because more often than not, that's the people who are coming to it. At the same time, though, we're happy to bring in people who have that experience. Now, sometimes I might look at the specific agency that they might have had experience with and might know a thing or two about them and say, we're not too keen on the way we know that they operate, and I think you might have some bad habits, and make an educated decision on that individual. But more often than not, I'd rather work with someone on a clean slate, teach them our best practices from the get-go. We are going to look, we're not just hiring anyone that doesn't have experience. show me a good background of work history, prove to us your personality and your work ethic. I can take that individual, and I'd much rather have them build a clean slate on how to do the job that at least my agency sees fit to our clients and to our best practices. And we feel like I can build that person up easier than I can change someone who's got really bad habits from an agency that wasn't too worried about compliance and training with today's dollar. So we're happy to bring on new people. It is a process. It's an investment. Our agency specifically is not looking to hire you for 3 months and push out the door. We're looking to hire you, train you for month and month and month, and build you up and keep you here for as many years as possible. It's an investment. It's investing in people.
So it sounds like you prefer then hiring someone with no experience.
Yeah, it's not that I'm against at all the people with experience. We have handfuls of people in here. Actually, we have a handful of people from Buffalo that have moved down for one reason or the other that we're happy to hire. But in some cases, you have people that their habits are too hard to be broken, or they worked under a management style that was incredibly different than ours, and in our point of view, not the best way of doing business. And they might interview well, and they might know FDCPA when they walk in the door. That doesn't mean they're going to conform well with our standards of business practices. So if I get someone brand new who's happy for the opportunity, most of our new hires too that are coming here with no experience, the vast majority of those are coming from references. They're not just random strangers. So it's the cousins, it's the in-laws, it's the neighbors, and people see, hey, you're doing really well at this company. What are you guys doing there? I want that job. And then that person will tell them all the good things and all the not so good things about collections before they ever walk in our door or submit an application. So they kind of have an idea what they're getting into. But more often than not, these people are given a reference and they have a good understanding of what they're getting into. But I'll take the fresh person, clean slate any day.
How long does it take to get somebody up to par that's never done collections with your guys' training?
I have a new hire class in here today. Tomorrow will be their 5th day. Halfway through their 5th day, they should make their first phone calls. Now, that doesn't mean training stops. For about a month, there's very intensive where they're on the floor for a little bit, and then we pull them into training multiple times back and forth. That person, we have people earning bonuses and commissions, whether it's the first, but certainly in their 2nd month and the 3rd month. So that means they're really understanding and doing the job. But I'll tell anybody, you should plan on 6 months before the giant light bulb goes off, where you find the job to become easy and you really start to earn the good commissions and the good bonuses. But between day 1 and month 6, you still should be climbing in your earnings and climbing in your understandings. But typically anywhere in that 5-6 month range, that huge light bulb goes off and you just go, oh, I've got it. And then training tapers and it comes and goes as it's needed. But probably in the first 2 months of someone coming in, it's real intense training, a lot of attention, and from there they kind of get their wings and find the little things as they go. But they're ready to rock and roll after a couple of weeks.
All right, awesome. Well, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks
Do you have
so much.
anything else you want to add?
I'll say thanks again, guys, for the opportunity. I love what you're all doing. Love the new office space. Looks really cool. And for anyone who is listening that might fall under the category of we don't record calls or training is minimum, you're creating a tomorrow problem. So talk to your leadership, talk to your executives and VPs, look at your budgets for training and development and see what you can do going forward, because the problems we face today are never going to go away. Consumer attorneys are going to look for honeypots. They're going to look for fishing holes that they can keep putting their line in and keep catching the fish. And if you keep selling those lawsuits, they're going to keep sending them to you. So you either stop them today, build the systems that you need to build, or you'll continue to fight the same battles. And sorry for the preaching on that, but I want you all to be awesome.
All
right. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, Greg. That was great information. If you're not recording your calls, make sure you are. Watch this episode, like, subscribe. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.